Thank you for filling out the survey in the description of this episode and doing your part to make this podcast better. It will be available for a very limited time. The 30 seconds it takes will help qualify for upgrades in production, bonus material, and more stories. Fill out what you can and click submit. The link is in the description and on the story notes for this episode. And now, a scary story. Back in the day, we used to see these very sad photos on the sides of milk cartons with the word missing in capital letters. The black and white photos never really meant anything to me, but that all changed when I saw my friend's face on there. The long messy hair, his crooked smile, and the yellow jacket he would wear almost every day, now all grayed out in that portrait. We met in first grade at the lunch table. The lunch lady set up an ice chest with ice cream bars by the trash cans, with a sign that said 25 cents. They were orange flavored and not very good, but I would always carry a quarter with me and waited for Wednesday to come just to buy one. I was about to stand up to throw my tray away when I heard the sound of a coin hitting the ground and rolling toward me. I looked down and stepped on the old quarter as a nerdy-looking kid came up to me, tried to say something, looked down, and began to walk away. "Hey," I called to him, "here's your quarter." Without saying anything back, he got on one knee and reached for the coin. He struggled a little to pick up the quarter, but eventually got it between the nail of his index finger and thumb, then walked over the ice cream table. It's been a long time since then, but I remember we eventually became friends, and I would go over to his house across the street, and he would come over to mine to play Game Boy games, and let each other borrow game cartridges. He was really good at finishing up the games. I remember he was good at a lot of weird things, like cheating at card games, dominoes, and could even figure out some pretty odd things. Once we got computers in our classroom in third grade, I started noticing a change in how he acted. During lunchtime, we would hang out in the library of our school, and he would show me pages, which, much later I found out, were actually forums, where certain users would release challenges that anybody could work on through programming software. I never really got into it, and would usually play Doom, hidden away from the librarians and aides, but Carlos got really into it. Some of the tasks seemed simple, but they had many steps. They were like puzzles or scavenger hunts that you would eventually direct message to someone, a stranger, on the internet. As a prize, you'd receive some type of virtual points that would show up along your username on the forum, and you could get up to a level 100 and become an expert or something like that. It was the summer between 3rd and 4th grade when things really started changing. His parents had gotten him a computer and a dial-up connection, so we would play chess and look up cheat codes for games, but he always seemed to be working on these forum challenges on the side. One day, Carlos told me that he had gotten a message, someone asking him for, quote, the day when everything disappeared, which, according to him, was also part of a challenge. Eventually, he would only talk about the databases that he found and laboratories. He started mentioning things about dimensions and alternative numbers or something like that. I followed along with his stories, pretending to understand him half the time. I didn't know I would be questioned over these things. Now I wish I would have paid more attention. One particular project he mentioned before he went missing was a search for a man. Supposedly a man had been captured and had released a series of coded messages. One of the messages was a scanned photo with a date and a short description on the back. I remember this project because Carlos started becoming obsessed with me learning a type of system to read messages using a walkie-talkie, then with images. When my family got an internet connection at my house, he started sharing strings of numbers that another program would capture and would spit out a sentence in plain English. This message then had to be counted for syllables, number of vowels, and then referenced with a table that we had made up. It seemed interesting at first, but an hour-long process just to get the word macaroni seemed pointless, even for a 9-year-old me. I was walking home from school when a black car pulled up next to me, and a man rolled down his windows to say my first and last name. I admit that I was a chicken back then, so I just ran as fast as I could through the little groups of kids along the way home, without looking back, finally making it home. I never found out what that was all about, and I don't think the car even followed me home. As soon as I turned on the computer and booted up the connection, I got a string of random letters and numbers. Carlos hadn't been in school that day, so I figured he had just sent me a message out of boredom. I pasted in the numbers into the program and it calculated a number 7. 7 meant H. Then I kept entering results until I read the whole word. Hide. That was the day Carlos disappeared. A police officer showed up the following day at school to talk with me, and my dad was there with him, along with my 4th grade teacher. Thinking back, I don't know how much that teacher knew Carlos since the school year had just started, but she tried to help out, saying very nice things about Carlos, things about his grades and stuff like that. I remember feeling confused and sad, and had to answer many questions about Carlos, including things that he would do on the internet. I answered with things about the challenges and about the latest project, but the police didn't seem to understand anything. I never saw Carlos again. I would spend years visiting the forum until it was taken down or transferred, and eventually I just stopped. But I know he's still alive. Many years later, after graduating college and moving into my own apartment, I found that old computer, and to my surprise, it actually turned on. All of my childhood memories started running wild through my head as I saw that old Windows 95 logo and the icons of the crappy games we used to play. What made my stomach turn, though, was the hundreds of transfers I received when I connected the internet adapter. They were from Carlos. The last one had been sent to me about 6 months before turning on the computer. I've decoded every single one, and they all seem to be repeating patterns. Alternative. Life. 88. Harbor. Alternative. Life. 88. Harbor. All except for one word. Hide, which was randomly placed in between all of the single-word messages. I've asked some of my programmer friends about this, and they've said that it does not seem to be automatically sent, and that the word hide might actually be a command and not a message, and that the messages may have been sending undetected. I'll keep working on finding out where he is, or at least how to send a message back to him. I've got a couple of friends together to help me on this project. Despite all of this, I'm glad Carlos is alive. One time my dad said that he was too smart for his own good. and I'm afraid some secret organization discovered that as well. To stay updated and to subscribe to the official Scary Story Podcast website, join us by clicking on the link in the description of the story's episode. There you can also find the link to the survey. Thank you for listening.